Welcome to We Three Kings.
Welcome to We Three Kings.
Welcome to We Three Kings.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to We Three Kings. Boggs, Laz, and Pineapple Phillips with you again for episode 2. It's the end of the year, so what better way to wrap up 2022 with a North America recap? There's also some big news that dropped as well, which we'll be leading off with. First of all, though, Laz, Nate, how you guys doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling real good. It's almost the holidays. It's almost Christmas. It's great. It's here good in Canada, snowing like crazy. It's cold. I don't want to go outside, so things are looking real nice.
Always mediocre, never bad.
At least you're consistent, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, talk about consistency. One thing that has changed is the fact that ESL Pro League is moving to a new format. Now, let's get talking about that, because it's pretty interesting. They dropped a tweet, yesterday, I think? Yeah, yesterday. So let's take a peek at that and look at this guy, because there's a format change to a round-robin double elimination group, including a last chance bracket. So instead of losing 2 games and you're done like a typical double elimination bracket, there is a last chance bracket added to it as well. So 3 losses and you are out. Now, for Season 17 of Pro League, Conference is still going to be a thing, but it will not be a thing moving forward starting in Season 18. And it will also move to online. We'll talk about that in a moment here. 6 weeks going to 5 weeks now for the ESL Pro League schedule, which is something a lot of players have complained about the length of the season. Only 2 streams as well for that. That's the important stuff right now. Let's talk about these group stages, the way this group is going to work. Personally, I love this change.
Yeah. No, I would agree. I think this is a really, really good change. I like that, the group stages increased from 24 to 32. I like that it has more like elimination as well. I think that's actually a better, because I think the biggest complaint was that we saw that a lot of those matches in the later stages, they didn't mean anything. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's great for the show and watching these teams perform, but there's nothing at stake. So it doesn't really have that authentic feel to it. So I think that was a nice change that they made here. I'm very happy so far with what they made.
Yeah, every match has an importance now, a big factor around it. You're playing against the better opponents as you progress further on, and then if you get done early, if you have a good record at the beginning, you have to play less games. It just makes sense to me. So I really do like the changes.
Yeah, and I do like this last chance bracket too. It kind of rounds out things as well and gives some teams on the lower end of things an extra chance to qualify, maybe have one of those Cinderella runs through the playoffs. And I do like how the group stage have also kind of moved towards a playoff format. I mean, it's a bracket now. So it does give you that playoff feel, that playoff vibe where every single match does matter. It's not going to be, oh yeah, this team has no mathematical way of qualifying for playoffs, and the other team is already qualified for playoffs, so they're just playing to play the game.
Yeah.
Everything is going to actually matter. Everything is going to have to pack a punch. And speaking of playoffs, it's going to be a bit interesting the way it works. There's going to be third place winners and last chance winners going off in the round of 16, and then round of 12, which, if you're new to brackets, or if you're old to brackets, you're probably a little confused. I was the first time I looked at it, because usually it goes round of 16, round of 8, round of 4, round of 2 is your final, right? Mm-hmm. So, with the round of 12, the team that loses the upper bracket final will drop down in towards the round of 12. And so that means you're going from 16 teams, but then you're adding another couple of teams in here, and you're still playing again. Single elimination in the playoffs, of course. But I think that's just going to add an extra layer of attrition for the teams that end up having to make it all the way through that last chance round of 16 bracket. Nate?
Again, I think it's the exact same thing I said before. It's the teams that are doing good out the gates getting rewarded with less actual game time, less strats being exposed. It just makes sense to me. You don't have to play the formalities in the round robin. You get to skip that time by really putting in the effort in the group stage and getting first place. I really do think it just makes sense across the board.
Yeah, and I would agree. And then, even when you kind of talk about the playoff brackets and everything like that, the one thing I was really excited about, I know it's going to be not lived long here with one more season, but the conference, I thought that was a really interesting piece as well. The fact that we can still have quite a few teams like fighting it out. And I mean, the one thing was that I didn't like love, I guess, was it being online, but at the same time, it still allows like teams to compete for getting that advancement, which does kind of make sense at the end of the road here. But I think I love the structure so far. I think everything looks really good on paper. So I'm just more excited to see how well it can be executed for this new year that we got coming up in a week and a bit.
Yeah, I do like how conference is going to be. I mean, it's still kind of conference, although the way that it's working for season 17 is going to be quite awkward.
Yeah.
As you guys can see here on the screen, 3 teams advance from Europe, and there are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. What are these numbers?
I know.
Well, there's more to come on that. 13 teams with 3 spots available. How is that going to work? It's not an even bracket, so I am confused there. For North America, 2 teams advance out of a 3-team bracket. Same with South America. Asia is the same deal, and Oceania as well. So every single group has an odd number.
Mm-hmm.
And I do like how we're also giving more qualification spots, not only to North America, because, I mean, we're all North American guys here. We want to see our NA boys make it overseas and actually get a chance to play and scrim in the top environments, but also for, like, the Asia's teams. We saw a great run from IHC. They look pretty good at the major. Oceania as well. I feel like that scene has kind of cooled off from the old Renegades Sponge days, or that one Renegades roster. I think they made a top 8 at a major once back in 2018 or so.
Yep.
And South America too. I mean, that's a region that has to ship a lot of people up to North America, even though they arguably have better, stronger teams for the most part. So it's good for those teams to get their shot at Pro League as well. Now, moving into Season 18, though, is where things get weird. Because, let's see if it has it on here. It's going to just be, instead of having conference, it's going to be the winners of ESL Challenger League and certain Challenger level events that get a direct spot into Pro League, as well as ESL World Ranking spots that'll get you in.
Yeah. And personally, like, I love that because, again, like, ECL is a big thing. Like, that's one of the biggest tournaments we have here for us, like in online, I would say. So I think for these teams to fight it out, it adds way more, on the line to making it, and then you get yourself a ticket to the guarantee. I think that's a big thing. I loved it when it was like that before. I didn't like that it changed. I always thought that was I just didn't like it. We'll just say that. I think this is a good way. Again, then now we're going to see all these regions fighting even harder than what we saw in teams that are like deserving to get that chance to go at EPL.
Yeah, it kind of restores that. What was it? People said it was the path to pro. It was kind of taken away when there was no direct invite spot.
Mm-hmm.
So it just restores it, which makes sense. I'm glad that we're bringing it back. It just makes sense to me.
I agree. I feel like a lot of the ECL players, especially North America, who felt there was no path to pro anymore, are going to be a lot happier with that. It's giving ECL a lot more weight to it. And overall, I think that's just going to be a very good change made. And it also gives the challenger level events some of that gumption as well. I mean, yeah, they had it, but it's a conference spot. This is a direct buy into Pro League. That's what everyone's vying for. It's like big events, Pro League, major. That's what you want. And so now that there's a direct entry point, I think that's a very good thing for all of these teams, for all of these regions, and hopefully we see some more organization investment in these regions, particularly North America and Oceania, because it doesn't feel like South America has any issue getting orgs. It doesn't feel like Asia really has too much of an issue getting orgs as well. It really feels like NA and Oceania just can't find orgs to pay the tier 2 teams really anything at all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the fact that, like we talked about, it's like for ECL, it's like, again, that's one of the big leagues so that teams can actually fight this, or they're going to probably see more of the incentive to actually bringing these teams into this. And then, understanding that there's a chance that they're going to be playing the 15 partner teams versus all the other teams that make it through other different ways. So there's a bigger investment for this, and the exposure will be a lot bigger. And then the fact that the season's getting cleaned up in the reduced weeks, I think that's a really nice touch, because I did agree it was a bit long for me. But I like the fact 1 week, I think, will make a huge difference as well. So, like I said, this has got my stamp of approval. I'm looking pretty happy with everything that I read on this update from everything.
I don't know the intricacies of all the seasons of ESL Pro League. I'm not going to pretend to know the intricacies of how everything functioned before, because let's be honest, I don't pay attention too much to it. I more so focus on like the tier 2, etc., that I'm actually covering. But from what I can see, from comparing it to what it says it was, it looks like a good change. I think it all just makes sense to me. It just it opens up the path. It makes it look like there's more opportunities for grassroots NA teams, and I'm assuming that would be also for other teams around the world. And so that just makes sense in trying to boost up the local scenes. And so it all seems in line with what the ultimate goal is right now, and trying to get organizations interested.
And the one quick thing I just wanted to add too, and I mean this is probably a little biased because we're all commentators and talent, but like on the bottom of the update, I also noticed that they said they're going to be removing a C stream, just keeping that like A and B essentially. And then they also put that they're doing a broadcast vision, so they're kind of reevaluating the whole structure of what they're doing. I'm hoping there's some good steps in place for like a lot of the young talent, the up and coming talent, to like get a chance to do like a bigger tournament, things like that. So I'm hoping that's part of the evaluation on the philosophy that they're talking a lot about. Because again, a lot of these commentators like us and other people, I can name a million people, they're all fighting for an opportunity to do something pretty big. So I think this would be a good revision as well. But obviously we don't know that. So I'm excited, but also curious to see what that actually means.
That's a good point. We obviously, as commentators, want to be working the best events, the biggest events possible. And if there's an opportunity for us to get in there, I'm sure us and however many people would want to be chomping at the bit for that. So We'll see. We'll see what's changing. Hopefully there's a bit of a freshening to it. Kind of feels like during the whole pandemic period, things really got just stale in terms of the overall broadcast package. There's a lot of green screen stuff, and I know there's a lot of criticism with that in the community. So hopefully there's going to be a little more fun things going on, maybe a little more innovation again in terms of the broadcast package, because that's something that esports has consistently had a bit of an edge over traditional sports with, is what the broadcast does, the kinds of things that are included in the broadcast, not necessarily the actual gameplay itself, but like set design and things around that, and innovating in B-roll. I think that's something esports has had a really nice thing going for it, and it kind of just completely stalled out during the last, 2 years almost. It's going to be 3 years in 2 months.
I know.
It's what crazy. The heck?
I know. It's crazy. It's so crazy to think about that, honestly.
Holy
I still shake my head. I'm like, I can't believe it. Just 2 years went by so fast. So fast.
COVID made everything fly by. Kind of stalled everything. We kind of got back into a groove, and then you realize, oh, we've been doing this for like half a year, but it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but I'm hoping things, everybody gets back into that groove. We get back to those resources we had before. We get back to the same mindset we had before, and we continue to innovate. That's kind of the main goal. I think, as Bog said, esports is the place where things like B-roll really get explored. So I'm hoping for some more innovation there.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well now, why don't we break down our predictions? We discussed the ESL Challenger League Season 43 North American Playoffs in our last episode. So why don't we talk about that now? And, well, I said I had a hunch Team 1 was going to win. They didn't win. They got top 3. They got 3rd place in the end of it all. Laz, I'm pretty sure you said something around EG or MIBR, so I think you got it right. Nate was like, Iron Blood all the way, baby! Iron Blood, Iron Blood, Iron Blood! 5th and 6th.
Yeah, he did. Let's just remind him that he did say that. I mean, to burn myself a little bit, I also did put a lot of emphasis on Nouns doing quite well, which they didn't. But the one thing I will say before I know Nate's going to just unleash himself on me here is that, I mean, when I'm looking at the bracket, Nouns had to play Iron Blood first. Then they went into a 3-map series with EG Black, which EG Black was the 2nd place team. And they went the absolute distance, like 16-12 on Mirage, 16-13 Overpass, and a 19-15 on Inferno. Sorry. So it's like they took them to the distance. And this was a team that was new with the roster. EG, like, no excuses. So I was thrilled, and I was watching that match just like in my living room, like screaming, because I was like, I don't know what's going to happen in this series, but I was impressed with Nouns. I thought they did pretty good, and they even took a map off ATK too.
Yeah, I would say Nouns definitely performed better than I expected. Again, I was kind of really leaning into the fact that they've been changing their roster against their will. It's not like changes they wanted to make. It's players leaving, etc., for other opportunities, and so I thought they might struggle. They didn't do as well as you would have hoped, right? You said you would like 3rd, 4th, etc. But they still did very well. Iron Blood kind of disappointed. Again, I think they're still building. They're still coming into their own. This is their 2nd season in ECL now. Their 2nd time getting 5th to 6th.
Mhm.
They also don't have an org anymore. That's an aside though.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see if they can continue to build or if they make changes. They might make changes just because they haven't seen any, concrete improvements. They're still in the exact same spot they were last season. But I'm still hopeful that they can still reach new heights. I think given a little more time and given an org that will support them more, I think they could really find success.
And the one thing, quick thing I wanted to mention too is like even the Noun series is that, I think we talked a lot about that roster and like some of the players that got recently added or even way before. And like the one thing I was really impressed with was Carson. I mean, he was that one player we talked a lot about that he does have some good firepower, but we haven't been seeing it. We were wondering if he really was the right piece of the puzzle to be put back into this team. I know in that series versus EG, he had that plus 16. I think he's sitting overall like a 1.17 rating. So he was looking really good. So it's impressive to see. And it's not like Stamina being quite new in the roster. He didn't have like a massive negative effect. I think he went minus 14 with like a 0.88 rating or 0.87 or something like that. So all things considered, still pretty decent. But that's my last piece on Nouns, I'll say.
And well, why don't we talk about EG Black? Because I mean, EG came in, they were like, all right, we've got this blueprint thing.
Yeah.
We're going to sign 2 teams and still have our main roster. And there were a lot of questions surrounding how that would all go down. They finished flawless in the group stage, 7-0. And then when it comes to playoffs, they get a forfeit victory in their first game, drop a map to Nouns, and then go ahead and take out MIBR 2-0 in the upper final.
Yeah, that's crazy.
There is a couple of things here to be noticed about that grand final before we talk about it. One, if EG Black would have won the grand final, they would not have been able to play at ESL Conference. Because of conflict of interest, because the EG main roster is part of the LURV agreement, and they already have a spot. Only one team from the same organization can compete in Pro League, same like major rules. 2, does winning the upper final really matter when you go into the grand final and get swept?
No, I don't think so.
I kind of agree. Yeah, I would agree. I don't think it matters too much. But at the same time, it's a newish roster. They're adding some new players. We talked about George leaving Nouns. He joined EG Black, obviously. He played for them. But I'm inclined to agree. I think that their 2-0 gets completely washed out by a sweep like that.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. Like I was like, to be honest, I was really surprised when I saw that they actually did 2-0 MIBR. I was like, no way that they actually won this 2-0, and actually in pretty convincing fashion, like a 16-10, a 16-13. Well, 16-13 is not convincing, but still like close games, but not. And I mean, I agree. Like I was shocked, and George played well. I think the lowest rating player was Walco, but everybody else was like a 1.07 plus. Like everybody was contributing really well. Walco's kind of leading the chain, and like he's the guy calling all the shots. So you don't expect an IGL to be popping off with the high numbers, but yeah, I think we didn't see the same MIBR like we did in the grand final. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, I mean, keep an eye on that score because Nate and I were on relegation that night. It was just kind of all right. You lost the first map. Oh, they lost the second map. Oh, they lost the third map, and they're done before we even finished our 2-map series.
Yeah.
Now, the first one I'm pretty sure was overtime. But the last 2 were just, judging by the score, looked really flat from EG Black, and I'm wondering if it was a combination of, hey, it doesn't matter if we win this anyways, and also MIBR actually fully turning up. Because we had this wonder and this postulation about them during the group stage where they finished 4-3. Definitely underwhelming for a team that probably should have finished undefeated in their group, right? But when it comes down to the games that actually matter, MIBR shows up and they dominate. And they're a team that should. They're a team that's somewhere inside the top 30 consistently.
Well, and that's the thing you brought it up, and I know I really emphasized this because I loved what you said, is that MIBR, they kind of went in like hibernation mode. Like they were obviously playing their matches. They weren't playing 100%, but they were playing. They were exhausted from everything that was outside of ECL. But when the matter, really was important, like they showed up. Like, I mean, they had that weird situation in the semis or whatever you want to call it with EG sweeping them with a 2-0. But I mean, if we just go back and talk about the final. I mean, I'm just pulling it up right now, but like Exit, the guy just went off. Like the guy went just insane. Like he had a 1.14 with a plus 33 with like almost like an 87 ADR. Like
Oh, 1.41, not 1.4.
no, 4-1. Sorry, did I say 1-4? Wow.
Hit a 1.4, yeah.
You're cutting out
Whoopsies.
that 100th, man.
Sorry. But like, okay, so the point is though, is like everybody contributed. Like if you look on the scores, like I mean, even Henny was right behind him as well, like plus 17 with like a 1.23 rating. Like this, everybody started clicking. Like that one game versus EG was like an off day clearly. And of course, I gotta throw some shade on the EG side here because again, they pick Inferno and they can't win it. They always seem to pick this map and they think they have the secret recipe, but they don't seem to win it when it matters. So I think that really screwed them. And like you said, Boggs, Nuke did go to overtime, but I mean, that's not super surprising, but MIBR came out on top with the 19-16. So
Yeah, and for more shade, I mean, just look at the ratings of the EG players, man. Their highest rated player was George, which is no surprise. 0.99. Highest rated player is a 0.99.
yeah.
Then it goes to
highest rated
Wiz
players-
to 0.89. Rush 0.85. Walco 0.82. And Stanislaw 0.65. What is the point of adding a veteran player in Rush or Stanislaw when it seems that they tend to drag the team down in a lot of these performances? That's something I've been noticing through the course of their addition to the EG Black roster, is that they're usually at the bottom of the scoreboard. Both of them. And it almost feels like you would be better off mentoring a young in-game leader. For instance, say, take a Cynic, mentor the kid, and grow him, and try and make a good North American squad rather than just having these two players who are obviously well past their prime.
I couldn't agree more. Like I think you and I talked about this like many moons ago, like just you and me, but I'll bring it up because I agree. Like you have two veteran players like Rush and Stanislaw that bring a lot to the table. They have experience. They've been able to win big championships. Like they've definitely done amazing things. But clearly when they're in the server, it's not the same thing anymore. It's kind of like the old Adren effect. Like Adren from Liquid, like the old Adren, right? I mean, he has such a good mind for the game, but the execution just eventually, it just wasn't working what he was trying to do with his mind versus what was happening in the server. Like the results were just never there anymore.
Yeah.
So I feel like these two players, they're kind of in the same boat. Like, I mean, these are guys that I would look at being like, they should be popping off. They should be doing quite well, but they're not anymore. Like Stan going -34 with a 0.65. Like that's just something you shouldn't be seeing. Like in my honest opinion, like that's a huge defect for this team.
Yeah, I would agree. I think they're kind of going. They touted this project as building up two young teams with the veterans behind them and the org behind them, and the org is still behind them. Don't get me wrong. And they have veterans obviously playing on the team. But I do agree that the veterans will be better placed as mentors, as somebody outside of the team, because in the long term, you want somebody fresh, somebody who can be molded into somebody that would be more beneficial to the team. Because I feel like these two, there's no molding them at this point. They're too old to be changed, or they're too old to grow. And your overall team growth is going to be hampered by the fact that some of your limbs can't get any larger, or they're even atrophying, some might say. So it's questionable. I do agree. I think they should be signing somebody. They should be signing our project IGL, etc. Someone to try and to really just bring this team more potential growth.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good analogy because it's true. They're trying to grow something, right? And yet they've got two players here who are not going to be growing anymore. They're past their development stage.
Yeah.
And one player, sure, I can see that. But two, it doesn't make sense when you can have an extra player. Like, yeah, sure, maybe you want that in-game leader to be the voice that helps. And like maybe even like what Taco's doing and has been doing for a couple of years now. Taking the young players and mentoring them. Taco, he's not going to frag out typically. He's not going to go and drop 30 kills in a map. But what he will do is he'll keep the troops steady and he'll bring that experience and help them grow. And he's done a great job with that so far. But have we really seen any major improvement with the EG Black roster? I would say no. As a matter of fact, I would say we've seen regression. I mean, we see Walco here in the game against Nouns, 1.0 rating. I think Walco was probably about a 1.5, 1.7, or a 0.05, 1.07 player prior to this roster. George still doing his thing. But then you look down here, 0.94 for Rush, 0.93 for Wiz, 0.92 for Stanislaw in their 2-1 win against Nouns. They had less players at a 1.0 rating or higher than the team that lost that series, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
It seems like EG will find a way to win, but they won't do it convincingly, and they won't do it in a consistent manner. And like, well, look at the EG Black MIBR upper final. Yeah, everyone did good. At the same time, the MIBR players didn't do so great at all.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm so glad you brought up the Taco piece too, because again, like he's the perfect example as somebody, that veteran player. He's been around. He's done all the big things. He's, major champion. He's done it all. But he's now working with young players, making them better, making sure that he has a system that works around them. It has nothing to do with him anymore. He's just trying to make sure the foundation works. But I think in this system from EG Black, it's the exact opposite. And you said it, it's regression. It's not the same thing. It's almost becoming a negative effect. And I said this, and I still stand by this, is I don't think they were tested at all this season. I said the team one was the only team that I was like, okay, this is probably going to be the good determination if it's working, the blueprint's working. That wasn't even a determination because they got disconnected and things didn't work out. So in them getting a 2-0 versus MIBR in the beginning, sure, that's great. But clearly the final, I don't know what happened, but they went 3-1 of a loss, but they only got the one win because it was a default and they had that map advantage. So really they got swept, which is really unfortunate.
Yep. Pull out the broom. Give them the good old sweep.
Give them a sweep, man. Yeah. And again, I feel bad. Like I'm not trying to bash on them, but at the same time, it's like, I love what EG are trying to do. Like, I think they have the right idea. They're trying to mold players. They're trying to build talent, up and rising talent that's in the scene. That's perfect. That's exactly what we need to do. And I think Nate said this really well, is like, it should be people that are being hired as like strategic coaches or whatever you want to call them, but they can be out of the server. They can help. They can watch the games. It's kind of like an additional coach. I don't know, but that to me would be so much more valuable with someone like Stanislaw, someone like Rush. That's clearly been a good anchor for a number of years. I just think now we need to see EG Black kind of make a restructure with young players, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, because to go for hockey, because it's something both you and I know very well. You have a defensive coach, you have a goalie coach, you have a forward coach, you have a head coach. You have positional coaches to really dial in certain things for each unique position. Rush would be a phenomenal person to be like, hey, you're the anchor, I'm going to teach you everything I know, and eventually you will become the master at this. When you leave, you will be the learner, and when I come back, you're going to be the master here, okay? You're going to learn everything. Stan, mentors in IGL. Boom. He was a solid fragging IGL during his prime. That would be a good thing. And EG have a billion coaches. I don't see why one more couldn't hurt. Or even like football, there's a linebacker coach, there's a safety coach, there's a quarterback coach, there's an offensive line, defensive line. Everything in football in the NFL has a particular coach. College as well, even high schools have coaches for groups of players. And it's all to dial in the individual skills that are required for each individual position. And in a game like Counter-Strike, where your individual position is so important, because if you don't do your job, then everybody else has to cover for you. If everyone else has to cover for you, then there's holes being left in the whole lineup. If there's holes, they will be exploited at this level of Counter-Strike, and you're not going to win games. And I really like that concept. EG has shown they are willing to splash the cash on this project. That would be a very good idea, I think, to really dive into positional coaching and take this to a whole nother level.
Yeah, I think they've been pioneering this 3 roster setup. The whole shtick behind it has been, this is a groundbreaking thing in a much needed region that needs the support. And honestly, like we said, I think we kind of pretty much said without saying, they've half-assed the whole cultivating rosters thing, because half the roster is old players that would be better suited to coaching. Further pioneer this kind of mentality, this specialized coaching idea, and bring in more young players. You've already bought so many. What's a few more? Is the best way to put it. I think Boggs put that well. Find somebody else. Find an IGL that would be good to mold with Stanislaw. find a good anchor that would be good to mold with Rush, or somebody else that already on the team that Rush could mentor. Just maximize the growth. Make a whole new team. Stop trying to slot players in and poaching apart other teams elsewhere in the league. Take a full team, build a full team. Stop picking and choosing.
Yeah,
They did have a full team.
yeah, did. Yeah. I love that, Nate, because honestly, that I think that's a really good point. Is because I think the problem we normally see, especially in our region, is that teams that are starting to do well, it gets picked apart. One player gets, the highlight, he gets the spotlight, they grab him, which I think is good in some degree, but at the same time, it takes away all the hard work that this game is. It's a team game. It's not individuals. I mean, it is individuals that form into a team, but at the same time, like, that player might not be as accessible without the teammates, right? So I think it'd be nice to see a team that can stick together, ride the thing out, have some mentors as well. And like you said, EG's been throwing cash around. I think they're doing the right thing. They just got to execute it better. I just think this whole, like, let's recycle some old school players and put them in the roster and cut some players out, I don't know if I'm for it anymore. I don't think it's the way it's going to be. I think if they want to be coaches or mentors or strategic advisors, I don't care what you call them, that up to me would be way more sense. And I think that could be beneficial for EG moving forward, but I guess we'll have to see what they're going to do.
Yeah, and here's the thing, too. I'm not criticizing them out of a point to hate. I want this to succeed so bad for the region that maybe I'm being hypercritical. I don't think I am. If I am, tell me. Tell me I'm being hypercritical, please. But at the same point, I want this project to succeed. I want this project to be phenomenal. I want this to be the start of something that becomes the norm. Something that becomes North American Counter-Strike and can take us to the next level. Because let's be honest, this region is severely behind EU. North America is further behind EU than we were 4 years ago. By a far bigger margin. We used to have 2-3 teams that could compete. We have one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
and a half, because complexity shows up 50% of the time.
Yeah.
Complexity's MIA right now. They're kind of lost in the sauce. They failed their they went overseas and then they got fatigued and they have not recovered. I think is the way I've looked at it. So who knows? Maybe they'll bounce back. Maybe they'll get used to this new norm of going to the EU for the tournaments. But until then, I agree. It's like 1.5 teams competing.
And that's still a young roster, too.
Mm-hmm. It is a young roster.
What's their average age? Probably 22.8?
It's pretty young, yeah.
Let's see. I could pull
That's
it up.
old.
I have the rankings somewhere around here.
And I mean, the one thing, like, just to kind of bounce off your idea as well, Boggs, is that, like, I totally agree. Like, we don't want to make this like a bash session against EG or organizations like that. I mean, it's great that they're putting support for the region, a much needed thing that has to happen. It's just we're all so passionate. We want to see it do better. We know that there's some ideas that we're not saying this is the right idea necessarily, but again, there needs to be some creative edge that, EG need to reconsider. Like, this 3-team system was interesting and everybody was really skeptical. I mean, I'm glad they're supporting and trying to keep CS in the region, but I think they just need to figure out a better blueprint. I think they just need to revise that thing to version 2 or 3 or whatever version they're on now. So
just go all in. Go on the young players. Stop renovating the old guard, or recycle the old guard in a different way. That's my takeaway. That's the only way. That's the only change you need to make. They're so close.
And I agree. Like, I think the old guard, like, I mean, it's great. And like, I mean, I've seen a lot of these players in their prime, like even older players too, right? But it gets a time where you have to let it go too. Like, look at Pasha, look at all those guys, right? The old Virtus Pro, like, they all had to eventually go, get right. Exactly. Like, phenomenal player. And then he just realized, you know what? I'm not at that level anymore. Like, I can't do this. So I think we just have to see that happen for a few teams and a few players in our region as well. Just kind of knowing, okay, well, let's transition. But that is a hit to the ego, though, for any player or any competitor at all. So I can understand that to a big degree.
Yeah, I definitely know that one personally.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got to know when to hang up the mouse or the skates. There comes a time when you got to hang it up. And whether that's forced by injury or just because you're not there anymore, there does come a time when you have to give it up. And the next best thing is growing the next generation. And coaching is an incredibly rewarding experience. You see the players learn. I used to coach youth hockey a lot. Back when I was playing roller for 6 days a week. I was at the rink all the time. Might as well coach a might team, right? Seeing those kids grow from the beginning of the season to the end of the season was always one of the most rewarding experiences. Seeing kids who come into the season not really being able to skate well and actually seeing them skate and pass and play a team game is just something special. And at this point, you're not teaching kids the basics. You're teaching people who are on the cusp of going to the next level and trying to get them over that hump, which I think would be pretty cool. You see your boys go to the next level. I feel like that would be an incredibly rewarding experience and be like, hey, they're the next guard, they're the young guard. And if the old guard supports the new guard, that's how we get a strong region. I mean, EU has that, for the crying out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Their old guys come in, they're like, all right, I'm taking you, and you're going to make a team, and we're going to make this thing work. And we're going to be great. And we're going to win everything we can. And how many of those teams do well? I mean, look at Copenhagen Flames when they came out of the woodwork.
Yeah. No, exactly. And just to throw in a personal tidbit on this as well, nowhere near, I'm not saying I coached him or anything, by the way. Full disclaimer. We're just make sure I don't get flamed for this. But the infamous story of Naf. I took Naf to his first LAN ever. Before he went to ESA LAN, we took him to a local LAN that was a bigger tournament in our area. We made him get comfortable, made sure that he understood what like a setup was and kind of like a lower tier janky LAN or whatever, right? Get him, situated in the system and the environment. And then the guy played really well. So, I mean, not saying that we had any effect on that, but it was still pretty cool to like help somebody that was a young player that you knew was going to go places and then just see him skyrocket. You're like, that's pretty unreal. But again, full disclaimer, we didn't do anything. We didn't coach him or anything. He carried us the whole time. So it was great. So it's fine. Thanks, Naf.
To put it less charitably, less sugarcoating, if you can't do, teach.
Yeah,
it's true.
It's a phrase for a reason.
Yep.
That's where I'm going to leave it.
And I go back to complexity, 22.4 years average age.
Okay, that's not bad.
So lower than I thought.
Yeah.
Very young squad.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty old.
Pretty
changes
old.
here.
They're younger than all of us.
Oh, I know. It's sad.
Now we're calling ourselves own. No.
I know. Like even ATK is like 24.8. Like
really?
Yeah, I think that they got the addition of DJ kind of made their average age go up.
Speaking of ATK, I thought their performance was kind of disappointing.
I would agree.
I would also agree. Yep.
But
I told you.
they have the caveat of mixing up the roster right before playoffs.
True.
So
they chose to do that though. That's different.
Yeah.
I would say
it feels to me like they let go of MOTM before DJ even became a free agent. I don't know if that was necessarily planned. So more like MOTM left for whatever reason that's not been released. That's all behind closed doors, and I don't want to speculate anything on that at all. The fact of the matter is, he got released.
Yep.
Oh, DJ comes on the market. That's a brilliant snag. That is a phenomenal snag, I think, for ATK. They made the best of a situation that probably isn't the best. We'll see how they come in after the break and into season 44. And, I mean, they have the conference qualifiers as well. They have a shot to be one of the top 2 teams to make it a pro league. I mean, what are the teams? ATK.
in Brazil and
Yeah, for NA, I think it's...
ATK, Mid Brazil, Nouns.
Yeah. So they really only have to get by either Nouns or MIBR, and reasonably speaking, ATK should beat Nouns.
Oh, they're going to be Nouns. That's another thing, like comparing Nouns, similar situation, changing out players, etc. before or in this season. But I think they have a far more difficult task than ATK do.
Yeah. I think they need to get rid of CJ too. Just nothing against the guy. He just hasn't been able to come up to speed.
It never feels like he was a sub. He was like on the the ECL roster. They had to have a sub. He was the sub that they had, and he was called up, and he answered the call. But now they need to find somebody more permanent.
Yeah, and we talked about this too. I mean, we all kind of expected there to be quite a few roster shuffles. I mean, I would expect that now, especially with the season being done and everything. With a bit of a break, I'm sure there's a lot of conversations happening right now. But and again, just going back to ATK, I mean, yeah, they didn't do that well. I kind of said this. I didn't really feel that confident in them, unfortunately. But I mean, the good thing is that they were 3 mappers. They didn't get swept necessarily. I mean. Okay, again, I'm not lying. I'm looking. I was like just making sure, but yeah, like they all went 3 mappers. I just think again, the roster addition really screwed them. We don't know what happened, but again, I do agree with you, Nate. Like it seems like they chose that. There was something going on, whatever it was.
It definitely felt like because the way MOTM tweeted it was like, I'm blindsided by this, like that's my whole takeaway from it was an unforced thing that ATK chose to do. And so it's their fault for doing it. But at the same time, Boggs is right. We don't know the exact situation around it. So maybe it was something where ATK's hand was forced and MOTM didn't know. We can't really guess, but assuming it was ATK's doing, like they chose to do this, it's their fault. It's a different situation from somebody like Nouns who had George poached. But assuming if that's not the case, then it's a different situation.
Well, and the last thing I wanted to quickly say too, because I can't remember which one of you guys said it, but it was like the timing of everything was just impeccable. Like you get rid of MOTM and then you see DJ like what 1 or 2 days later, released,
3.
and then he gets picked. Yeah, like he gets picked up. Like, and I don't know if there was conversations in the background. Maybe there was. We can't speculate. We can speculate, but it's not going to mean anything.
Players talk. That's all.
Players talk. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, who knows? And that's the thing. Like, because even when I saw that, I was like, who in the hell are they picking up? Like, who are they going to poach? Like in this kind of a situation, I honestly had no idea. I thought it was going to be some crazy thing. They were going to be like, I don't know, we're stealing someone from MIB or we're stealing
Importing somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
like
they're
what?
gonna grab somebody from Advanced and be like, you know what, son,
You're ready.
Shot.
Let's go, boy. You in? Lace up the shoes. You're ready.
Yeah. They're sniping Freshie from Detonate, man.
Actually, would not have been a terrible move.
That would have been. Freshie's one of the best anchors in Advanced. I'll say that.
Yeah,
that would actually. That would actually gonna fit the kind of void in their playstyle.
What a bold move.
It would have worked. I don't know if the chemistry's there. I don't know how Uwu ATK are. You know, it could have happened. I will say.
Yeah. It was. I think I don't know how you guys felt, but like I thought the bracket. I'm just looking at it again. Like, I know we made quite a few predictions. I thought. I kind of thought it went how I not almost thought it would go. Like I think the MIBR team won game. I even called it. I was like MIBR is going to slap them, and they did. They 2-0'd them. I was like I didn't think that was going to be competitive or super competitive. But I think ATK getting dropped that quickly. I was like, that was a little surprising to me. But they also had like the highlight match for the opener. Like they had probably the worst team to play against and they lost. So I mean they had a rough road to go in the lowers, which is never fun for a team. So
this was one of those like, you know, this was like, okay, this is one of those parallel universes I see happening. This was not like a what was it, a Legends stage major where FaZe goes 0-3. It's not like an out of left field impossibility. This was a way the bracket could have gone. We didn't say it explicitly, but this definitely makes sense with what we expected.
Yeah.
It's within the realm of reality. It's nothing crazy.
That's the best way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, it all makes sense. You're looking at it, I can see that. Yeah, it makes sense. Nothing really blindsides you. Nothing hits you upside the head. It's like, all right, yeah, that all makes sense. Cool. Now, we've talked about playoffs. That also means that there's another season of ESL Challenger League coming forward. Season 44. Should be starting actually sometime in January, if memory serves me right. Late January sounds about right. And, well, that also means there's a relegation tournament. So, as we can see here, the bottom 2 teams in ESL Challenger League from the previous season get dropped to advance. They get relegated. And then the next teams, 2 teams above them from each group, so 4 teams total, go into a relegation tournament with 4 teams typically picked from advanced. This time around, we had a newcomer, not really a newcomer, a team that at least I know you and I love, Laz, in Pain Gaming. They were invited. The first time this has ever been used. A direct invite into relegation. Pain, no surprise, they qualified back, or technically it is back into ECL because they were there for a while. No surprise there. But any surprises for you first, Laz, about teams that were in relegation and did not qualify into ESL Challenger League?
You know, I think the one team like that I was kind of looking at a little bit was like, I thought Snake's Den was kind of an interesting team. Like I thought they maybe would have been able to do something kind of cool. So I mean, the fact that they came in 7th and 8th, I was like, okay. But I mean, having Pain put it in there right away, like I was like, yeah, that's a guarantee. Like I would have actually said that was a massive upset if they came like anything less than first, to be honest. Like let's be honest. But it was really cool to see a team like Detonate as well doing really well. And getting that spot as well. And we kind of talked about them, and they didn't really have the best, season, but they did well in this relegation. And I mean, you guys got to capture quite a few of these games. So, Nate, I know you're a big Detonate fan, so I'll let you go on that one for a bit.
I mean, we've been following them since they were Northern Forces. 4 seasons ago, when they qualified for ECL in the first place.
That was 3 seasons. Yeah, because advanced then 2 seasons in ECL.
Yeah, this is their second season, right? They survived
Yep.
2 seasons now, which is
Yeah.
a rare thing nowadays. Most teams kind of move up, get their mental boomed in the first couple of weeks. They make an ill-fated roster change before they even start in ECL, and then they just crash and burn. Um, but Detonate, they survived now 2 seasons, which it does bode well. It's not as good as Iron Bloods, who got playoffs in their first 2 seasons, but uh, it's good enough, I would say. And so I'm happy to see this team kind of coming into their own. Again, they made some changes coming into the season with Micro, with Brett, but the core Freshy, Florence, and Cryptic have stayed together for a while, and they are finally beginning to look a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more not sure of themselves, like they have an identity, like they're not like drifting. They're not still trying to find the pieces. It feels like they finally settled on a majority of their roster.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think for Detonate, they're just missing one piece, really, and I think that's just a little more prolific of an opper. I feel like if they had that more stability, because Florence could be very good, he can also just completely go missing.
Hit and miss, very hit and miss.
And that's the thing. A mediocre, consistent player is better than a guy who's either insane or not there at all. Because at least you know what you're going to expect. And you can plan for that. And it seems like Detonate, when they're on fire, when they're on form, Florence is firing on all cylinders. But when he's gone, they lack that extra punch. There seems to be a hole that teams can exploit. And it happened too. I mean, they lost a map to Wonjin, they lost a map to Limitless through the whole relegation tournament. It was not clean for them. And I think they would have liked to go through clean. In fact, I mean, yeah, Villainous lost to Pain, but all things considered, if you just go for the teams that should be in relegation, Pain should not. Villainous lost less maps than Limitless, than Detonate did.
Yeah. And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say that they're also really slow to start. That's the main thing I noticed. Was like we were on the tournament for the round 2 and round 3, and we were on Limitless Detonate, and we noticed at the end of map 1, both teams were okay. End of map 2, Detonate really fell off, and they were not showing us anything to be excited about. Like map 1 was like, okay, they won, a little bit edged out in terms of individual performances. Map 2, okay, they got outskilled, they just looked lost. And then map 3, they actually came alive. Map 3, they actually looked like the team that should have been winning, and if they were there like that, it would have been a swift 2-0. Decisively. So if they can just get the ball rolling out the gates on map 1 and then keep that momentum going into the series, they will be a team to be feared.
Yeah, and I guess the one quick thing I just wanted to say too, I don't think I mentioned them, but a team that I always kind of looked out for personally was Limitless. Because I knew Stamina was on that team for a little bit of time, that which made me excited. I know obviously he's not on that team anymore, but I mean the fact that they made it as well, like I'm excited to see what they can do. So I think this will be an interesting season. I think this will be, again, a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Like Pain being put back into this is like they're the clear favorites to win the whole thing, I would say. I mean, I don't know if that's up for debate, but I mean Limitless having a pretty decent showing and getting themselves in the 3rd and 4th. I'm excited to see what they can do.
Also qualified without their IGL.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's pretty huge. I'm glad you brought that up because I was just about to be like, and mic drop. But yes, that's a huge factor. So I think that's something that I'm curious how much more they're going to do of improvements for ECL now for the new season of 44.
Yeah, and I'd say Cameron had a magnificent game, magnificent series against Rain, too, in that must-win game. And that's kind of been a thing, too, where Limitless seemed to choke. They choked against Davenport. They had Davenport on the ropes. Lost the last 2 games of advanced finals in that best of 5. They had Detonate on the ropes, too. They choked that one away. And against Rain, it wasn't the prettiest of Counter-Strike. It was actually pretty ugly, but they got the job done. And that was a very ugly series for them, but they got it done in a 2-0 fashion.
It was scared.
It was.
It was a slow slog of a game.
Both teams were very scared.
Yes. Which makes sense. I mean, Rain came in, they had to qualify for the qualifier. They had to play an extra game just to get 5th place to get into this tournament. And then they had to go in and start off against Villainous Union, which honestly, not the worst, could have been against Pain. But they had a tough thrashing there. They lost 0-2. They beat Snakes Den 2-0, and then they lost 0-2. Honestly, Rain, props to them. couldn't quite get there, but that's another roster I would say keep an eye on going into the next season of Advanced. Limitless deserve it. But again, that series, if Limitless play like that in ECL, they're going straight back to Advanced next season.
Agreed, 100%. And that's the thing, too. It's not easy to stay in ESL Challenger League. I mean, you see how many teams have to fight through relegation. 2 teams minimum go down, then 4 more teams. So just under half of the teams either get instantly relegated or have to deal with relegation itself. If you're not making playoffs, your life is very tough. And so that's what makes ESL Challenger League a very difficult league in that sense, where you're either the best of the best or you're going back down. Good luck, have fun in Advanced. And now with the Path to Pro being restored to cycle all the way back to what we were talking about at the initial point of this show and the new Pro League, the whole new Pro League system, I think we're going to be seeing teams hopefully stick around a little bit more. Not make these little roster changes, because it's like, all right, you do well, you make playoffs, you go straight to Pro League. Keep your members. Don't change anything up. And hey, you play ECL, you give it your heart, and you can't get anything done with your same lineup, maybe then you can talk about a change. But if you're making a change right before or after a couple of losses, you're not going to gain any traction. You're not going to go where you want to go, which is going to Pro League. That's what everyone wants in this stage of the game.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I think this comes back to our original conversation about EPL, the conference, like all the new changes coming in. So now I think it's kind of rebuilding that, you're fighting for something. You're fighting for that guaranteed spot that you can get yourself into EPL. So I think this puts a lot more at stake. Whereas I think when that changed, a lot of teams, I think the mentality might have been off for our region at least, which is whatever. That's something else. That's a whole other podcast episode we could talk about. But I mean, incentive, I think this is where we're going to start to see hopefully teams like sticking it out unless there's clearly something not working. Yeah, so this makes me excited to see these teams do well. And I'm glad that we got to see some, teams like Limitless and Detonate being able to make it in. So this will be a competitive season 44. I think this is going to be quite competitive. I say that almost every time, but I think this should be one of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think we could use a little bit more stability. I think it's kind of what we're getting at, where teams need to have a little bit more wiggle room in terms of survivability. In ECL, there's only one spot outside of playoffs in each group where you won't have to fight to stay alive in the tournament or in the next season, going into the next season. And I think it makes sense. Adding more spots like that, where you just sit there and survive, will only breed more teams like Mythic. It's just a gatekeeping team.
Yep.
Which you don't want. So you got to find a way to trim the fat, but also still give those fledgling teams that, not throw them to the wolves. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're birds leaving the nest that is advanced. We don't want them to just fall out of the sky onto the ground and get eaten by the wolves. We want them to have a little spot where they can at least get their footing before they have to contend, So I don't know how you do that. It doesn't make sense, just give and take. If you add more spots like that, 5th place spot in each group, you're going to have more teams like Mythic. So it's a give and take. I don't know what the best path forward would be for that.
I don't either. I mean, maybe you could do something like you have a grace period. First season, if you're in 6th or above, you're fine. But after that, you get demoted. Could be something along those lines. That could be something that could be used as a bit of a middle ground, but I don't know. It
hard
gets
convoluted
to
there.
Yeah, that gets way too complicated. And it's like, they have 2 fifths that have played before, and it gets way too complicated. So honestly, I don't know if there is a way to fix that. I don't know, without changing the whole entire format of ECL.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that should be done either. I don't think it should. I think it's fine the way it is right now. It gives each team 7 best of 3s to play if they actually do play their games. And that's a good amount of games. I mean, on top of scrims and everything, and now with Pain being back in the region, MIBR, Pain, Team 1, Nouns, ATK, I think Strife's a team that can challenge for stuff. EG as well. I think we have a decent amount of teams there where you can get good competition and hopefully grow. hopefully scrim properly, right? Because that's the other thing. If you're scrimming to win, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I'm glad you brought up. I wanted to quickly mention them too, so I'm glad this is a good segue because I was going to say, Strife for me was always an exciting org. I actually really like what they're doing over at Strife. But the highlight news for Strife right now is that I think they got rid of Jitter and they're bringing in Aris again. I think I'm saying his name right.
Wait, they got rid of Jitter?
Minus Jitter plus Eris.
Yep. Cut
Yep.
Jitter or Aris. And the interesting thing based on from all the articles and reading it is that it sounds like Aris is kind of the the one guy that brings in a lot of like the work ethic and making sure things are staying on top of good fashion, and it's a good thing to note. Like it sounds like the players are wanting to do more and to advance themselves, so it's like, okay, there was a clear problem apparently, or there was an issue with Jitter. He needs to develop himself a little bit more, so it kind of again shows that seriousness. So it's things like that I'm okay with. And seeing someone like that coming back to Strife will be interesting because I think they had a lackluster season, but we also know they got a ton of shuffling that happened against them, and the deck of cards were just against them this entire season. So I'm looking forward to what they can do, especially bringing someone like him back into the realm.
Yeah, that's actually I mean, they have Infinite and Snakes. I mean, if you're new to North America, you don't know who Snakes is.
Go look him up.
Just look at his HLTV history. And that was a roster back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
That was a roster, man. Why can't we have that anymore? Come on. Why don't we get
have
that
nice
in this
things?
region?
NA cannot have nice things.
That's true.
True.
That is true.
This is where nice things come to die, actually.
Speaking of, why don't we do a North America recap in general?
Let's do it.
So, did North America win any international tournaments this year? Whoever wants to go first, go first.
I'm going to say no. I don't know anything, so I'm going to say no.
No.
Taz?
Well, I mean, the only thing that I was impressed with was Liquid doing quite well at Blast. I thought that was
the closest we got.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was
Liquid second place.
That was super, super impressive. That I thought they did really well and they looked good. So I was like, this is what we all wanted to see. This is the Liquid we wanted to see. Unfortunately, the final was a little lackluster, but I'm glad to see Liquid at least could end on a decent note for the year. And actually a really good note, not a good year, like a really good note.
We had some other, signs of promise. We had Complexity going into the major.
True.
Going into the major before they played the major, they looked really good. They looked great. They had that
Two
performance at
totally
Pro
different
League.
things. Two different things. Yes.
They looked good in Pro League. They looked really hot coming into the major. They're like, okay, maybe we have two NA teams that can actually contend here. It was exciting. And then they bombed out, and then they went MIA, and they're just gone. I don't know where any of them are.
I think they're in Texas right now, actually. Should I go check on them?
And drive down. Let me know how they're doing, how the mental is.
Not right now, man. There's 40-mile-an-hour winds outside. I am not leaving.
That's a good point. But you get my point. They looked good at one point. That's what we said. That's what we said. We have 1.5 teams at the international level because they looked good at the start of the year. They're not looking good now, but they did look good at one point, and I'm assuming they can kind of fix that fatigue and that burnout that they had.
Yeah. Now, I will touch on this. We went on a whole bashing raid on EG, which was out of love, was a labor of love. EG White did win Fragadelphia 17, which you could technically classify as an international tournament with Apex, Team 1, and Big Academy, and Blackhand. But
no.
If you look at 1 through 4,
that as an international tournament, not really.
That's like NA's one. This is NA's one nice thing, and you know,
we did win it.
We did.
I just don't count it as an international land because it's not.
No.
You look at 1 through 4, you call it international, and you look at the rest like, oh, this is just an NA land that some teams infiltrated.
To be honest, I mean, I don't want to spend too much on this because this is funny, but I mean, it's the one thing I thought third of, honestly.
Let's start over there. You cut out for like a solid 10 seconds.
No, I'm back. Hello.
Yeah, you're
Hello,
back.
you're here.
Hello, testing. Can you hear me?
I blame
now? Okay.
the weather.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it probably is the weather. The one thing I was just gonna say, I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the one surprising factor for me was Apex coming 3 to 4. Like I honestly put them as a top contender to do quite well. Granted, they did. Yeah. I'm glad you bring it up. Yeah. Granted, they did play Big Academy. There was look at the mass map, 22-20. Like, yeah, they were like, that was a crazy game. Dust
Yeah,
2.
their ATK one.
Yeah. Like, I think for me, like, that's where I was just shocked, right? Like, again, look at these scores, like 22-19, 16-7. So I think for them coming 3-4, I was like, man, I was expecting them to do a lot better than what they did. But I mean, they came top 4, I guess. Sure. The NA / some international teams, I guess.
NA
Whatever.
and friends.
NA and friends, yeah, sure, yeah.
Because Apex have kind of become friends of the whole Fragadelphia circuit at this point.
No,
This is their
for
second
sure.
Fragadelphia they've come to, so.
And I mean, I think it was Stika was saying that he's like, well, yeah, like I wasn't really sure what to expect, but he was like, oh, this is like quite good. Like, I think they originally thought they were going to come into the tournament and just sweep the damn thing, and it's like, no, you got a reality check. So
You got beat by Big Academy.
yeah, you got beat by Big Academy,
it's
another.
like scrim
Got beat by
practice
EG
partner, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, good times, good
Now
event.
Sin's on the big main roster, so.
Yeah. But man, Sin was so good at frag. Like
Cracked.
dude, he was just going off. Like the guy was putting up insane numbers. Like Boggs is just hovering over the EG White game. I mean, he was still a 1.47 and they lost. Like that's already painting another picture for you. Like the guy he was on top of everything. Yeah, the Boggs is hovering over another one. In case you can't see it, it's them going Apex 2-1. He was what, 1 is that 5-4 or 1-4? 1-4.
And then 1.34 against Electrify Steel.
Yeah.
It's
all right.
incredibly funny that he had 1.47 rating against the 1.08 Ponalone in the finals and lost. Like that is a difference
look at the
of like
ratings overall, though. 1.47, 1.37, 1.01
Oh, my
on
gosh.
Big Academy, 1.08, 1.05, 0.95 on EG.
Oh man.
it's crazy. Like it's a difference of 0.39 in your top performers for each team, and you're losing. And even in your second, you're still apart by
Yeah.
0.32. Like Prosus as well at 1.37 rating. Like it's crazy.
I think about the Oppers duel. Ponalone's the Opper. He's down by 0.39 and still won.
Man. Doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense. Now, to look at more of the world ranking stuff for NA, let's see how many teams we have in the top 30. Just random guess, how many teams do you think we have in the top 30?
I'm gonna say 2.
Do we count ATK as
Yes.
Oh,
top 30.
what? Oh, I didn't know that. All right, I'm
You
going
can
last.
you can refresh, you can redo.
Is Complexity in the top 30? You think?
Yeah.
At this point, we haven't
Yeah,
heard
I'd
anything
say-
about them. I'm gonna say 3 teams. If we're counting ATK as NA, I'm gonna say ATK is up there somehow.
I'm gonna say
3
4.
teams.
4.
4. That's
Four
what I'm gonna
from
say.
Laz, 3 from Nate. So we got Liquid, obviously.
It's 1.
Then we have Complexity.
Where's
The way
Complexity?
down here.
420?
Ooh.
2.
Then we have EG,
Oh,
I forgot about
3.
EG. I forgot they even existed. I'll
Oh
be honest.
no.
and that's it.
So
Oh,
I got.
what about Pain? Would we count Pain?
No.
They're all Brazilian. Nice try.
No, just
If we
dude, they're an
count Pain,
ECL.
then we have to count Fury.
Listen,
We
they're
only count Fury and Pain when it's the major, okay?
Listen,
And
they're
Made in Brazil.
ECL.
And Made
They're
in Brazil, if we're
ECL.
counting them.
They're an ECL. They're an NA ECL. That's why I was like, listen, that's 4, right? Like,
And
let's
then we're
count
also
it.
If we're gonna
counting
say
9Z
that, then-
too.
Ah, true.
9Z's not an ECL. Okay, I'd say 9Z's true. If we're gonna count like that, I would say you count Made in Brazil, you count Pain, you don't count Furia. Well, Furia is like Liquid, is the way
Yeah.
I'll put it. And I count Liquid as more of a European team at this point in my head because they're never here.
Yeah, they
Okay.
come back for like one thing and they're like, okay, and then we're gone. So
yeah.
yeah.
So
Thanks for your
I
time.
got
Back to
lucky. I
Dallas.
got 3 because I forgot EG existed, and I also said ATK on the top 30.
Mhm.
ATK is like what 35, something really
We're-
close.
I could. No, they're not on the regional rankings. I'll just look up their team name real quick.
They gotta be really close.
41.
That's not. That's further than I thought it was. Okay, never mind.
top
Other
40 or top 50. Well, yeah,
top
for
50.
sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Well, at that point,
okay.
we're included everybody.
Yeah, that's everybody. It's not a very exclusive club, buddy.
We can
Hmm.
make it.
That's the 50. That's the 50 teams left in Counter Strike.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, if we look at the frag things again, we got teams that are ranked like 100 and something. Electrify Steel is 226.
Oh my god.
Phantom Troop is now Detonate. Vendetta still
Yeah.
exists. Argon, I don't even know if they're a team.
You know, one thing I know, Nate, you just mentioned about Liquid, but I mean, I just pulled up the world ranking now because I can't cheat. But Seeing them actually in like a top 4 placement in world ranking, like that's pretty sick. Like, I mean, there was a point where they got dropped pretty fast.
They were
So-
far down there.
Yeah, they were. And I mean, it's funny because like you have 3 American players with NAF being the Canadian, yeah, my boy, and then you got Yukinder obviously being kind of that international like transfer as well. And obviously like with him joining, like holy crap, like this team just kicked everything into like NOS, man. Like they were just firing off.
Kindar kicked everything into Nos, man.
That's wait, is that not what I said?
He brought the
Well,
work ethic.
Yeah, he did. He
Kindar
did.
is literally everything. He brings a whole bunch of strats to this
Yeah.
team. The work ethic, the mindset.
Yeah.
He's the savior of North American Counter-Strike right now.
Yeah, he is. And I agree. Like he definitely grinds. Like the guy grinds, and he came from Virtus Pro or like Outsiders, I guess, right? So it's like, yeah, he came from a big foundation. So for him to bring this over to a team like that, I'm all for it. And I love it. He's been the perfect piece to this this equation. So
There's only 2 like national, like actually fully one country teams in the top 10. Like everybody else is international. It's Furia and it's Heroic. That's it.
oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Cloud9 might have been like a top 10, but they're not. Yeah.
They got a mix. Hobbit,
Hobbit's the
Is he Kazakh? Is that what that
Yeah.
is?
Kazakhstan.
There's 2 teams like that. There's Outsiders in them with just one player who's from Kazakhstan.
Yep.
and I guess Heroic's just like full Danish, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
so.
Heroic's full Danish. G2 is the mix.
big
Bosnian,
mix.
Australian, Dane, and Monesi. And FaZe obviously is just a whole entire soup. They don't have
FaZe and
one
G2 are the 2 super soups, I
recurring.
would say.
Well, FaZe doesn't even have a single recurring country. G2
well,
at least
G2
has
has
Nico
has
and
the
Hunter
brothers,
as both
yeah.
Bosnian, yeah. Well, they're cousins, but
They're cousins. They call
Yeah,
them.
you got-
They're called the
you got
brothers on
NA,
Twitter. Let's
you
be
got
honest, yeah.
Western Europe. Well, you got Nordic Europe and you have Eastern Europe on
Yeah.
FaZe.
Dang.
Yeah.
And then there's good old Navi. Mouse is a mix. Dexter's bringing the Australian flair. JDC's back to the Mouse roots. Remember when Mouse was like pretty much a full German team with Chris J?
Oh yeah, best team ever. Yeah.
That was a fun
Yeah.
team to watch. They weren't the
full
best,
German.
but they were fun.
They
And they
were.
picked up Nico, and then the roster kind of just did that weird thing.
Mhm.
The thing where Nico takes over everything.
Yeah. I will say I did think that post Nico and then especially post Chris J, Mouse lost their kind of identity. I feel like they finally, especially like they had ROPS, they had the pieces, but they didn't have an identity. Now I feel like they've actually found their identity again. Now they actually look like a team that has that sticking power in my mind,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
I
it's
agree.
been gone for a while. But I'm glad to see them actually looking
And
good.
even in like JDC from Mouse, like the fact that he was on the academy roster and then he got to join, like that's a really cool thing too. And then Dexter as well, like he's that Australian player like that got to join as well, and he's like putting a lot on the line, and he clearly made it work. And I forget what the exact quote was, but I know at the major they talked about their team a little bit, and then they had like a heart to heart with him about like something he wanted to do, and they're like, this isn't working. So he like reinvented the whole thing, and then it like became what they were and how well they did the major too. So yeah, that was an exciting team to watch for sure.
Wait, there's an enunciation thing for each player's name?
Oh yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Click
is
on somebody's
this?
name. Click on it.
Oh no. Oh no.
There it is at the bottom.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's a
I
cool
didn't see that till just
good
now.
good feature
That's
they added.
cool.
I
That's cool.
massive shout out to HLTV for doing
Hats off HLTV.
that. Was honestly the most frustrating part as a commentator. You're like, I don't know
Well,
properly
I
how
don't
to
think
say
it would
this
work
name.
for our good old ECL level friends.
No, for sure. But I
let's
just
take
mean
a
like
wild gamble.
any qualifiers we did and stuff. It's like it's hard sometimes. You're like,
For like 9Z. Oh yeah, like
Mhm.
9Z players. Ooh, it'd be hard sometimes. But
Eh.
see, DGT. How do you want to pronounce that? Oh, it doesn't have one. Never mind. It's just so sad.
yeah, it's very specific. Very
It's
specific.
very specific. I don't
Top
know.
10
DGT
only, top 10
I think
feature.
DGT's big enough, man. 9Z needs more love. They were
Yeah.
fun.
9Z
They were really
still
fun
the
to
dark
watch
horses.
the RMR.
Yeah.
Still the dark horses for me. Still a team that's gonna make a run. That's the all in on the young guns that we're talking about when we're talking about
Yeah.
like an EG roster project team. This is what we want. Something like
Yeah.
9Z.
Look at this average age right there.
21.1. They're all new players.
And
that
who's
have
the
not
coach?
done anything. Yeah.
It's Zach. Talk about a coaching legend. Zach's been around the block.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure Buddha's like 17 or something crazy too. Oh, he's 19. Who's the young guy they have? Is it Max? No. I remember they had some guy who was super young. Not DGT.
David Davis.
Is it NQZ? Oh yeah, NQZ 17.
Yep.
That's crazy. Pretty cool.
Yeah. Super cool. And one last thing that is super cool before we wrap things up here. The Counter-Strike official rankings. Counter-Strike has come out with regional rankings. This whole little GitHub thing here. Don't yell at me, folks. There's no dark mode for it, for those of you watching.
My
If there
face
was a
like,
dark
boom.
mode, I would have it on dark mode. At least I
me
couldn't
too.
figure it out. I might just be dumb. Who knows? If there's a way to turn GitHub into dark mode, please drop it below if you're watching on YouTube. But basically, they're doing regional standings, which will work towards the RMR qualifiers and stuff like that, and it's based on teams' prize money earned, beaten opponents, and head-to-head results. And the model can create some weird things. I mean, we can pull up here. Dust 2 has it nicely up to the top 20. If you really want to start getting weird, you can look beyond the top 20 in North America or in the Americas. This is all one combined. But I'm just going to read out the top 10 here, Nate, and you let me know if you see anything weird, because Laz and I were already discussing this earlier on today. Liquid, Furia, Complexity, Pain, Fluxo, ATK, EG Black, MIBR, Nouns, and 9Z is the top 10, according to the Valve rankings.
You're putting this on me, man? Fluxo? How good is Fluxo?
Yeah.
I thought you were just going to say ATK, EG, and Nouns above 9Z, and you were just going to yell.
I'm annoyed by it. 9Z is still one of my favorite teams, if not my favorite team. I'm always going to root for them. I think I had them as my 3-0 at the
Oh, yeah, you did, didn't
in
you?
the first stage. Yeah.
Wow.
I kind of took a note out of Laundry's book. I'm like, I want to put 9Z somewhere, and your gamble is always your 3-0, so you might as well put them in your 3-0 spot.
Yep.
And I would have been entirely happy if they went 3-1 and knocked out one of the teams that I had in 3-1. I don't, or in just the getting through series. I don't care. I want 9Z to succeed. I do
Same.
agree. I think 9Z better than Nouns. EG Black question mark there. ATK. And the big question mark for me, like Nouns with all these roster changes. It doesn't seem like they have any provisions for these roster changes, like when
think they
players
do.
leave, which is a big issue for me.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's yeah. Say it is pretty funny that like Nouns is like ahead of 9Z, which makes no sense to me. But I mean, I like this. I'm glad they are initiating this, like the ranking system. I think this is going to be good. Which again kind of skips the RMR piece for people that are kind of wondering like what does it mean. I'll let Boggs obviously go on the more detailed tangent of it. But I think the fact that we have like organized like regions for how well like other tournaments are playing into factor for the major, I actually love that. I think that adds again. These teams are obviously fighting everything they can in all these tournaments, but it just adds more of that incentive, right? Because then it, like the more well you do in these other tournaments, a good chance that you can get yourself in a good spot for the major, which I think is obviously the key for any competitor. So I like it. I'm curious how it'll be executed, but I mean, they're very open about it's going to need some changes. So that's good. At least they're not hard set on the on the current settings. So
Yeah. I'm looking here. Dust 2 omits this, but I'm looking here on the official Valve software GitHub thing that they put out for this. Nouns is ranked 9th with the CJ, Cynic, B-Will, Stamina, Carson roster. Nouns is ranked 23rd with Jazzpim, Cynic, B-Will, Sixy, and George. Something is not right. There are definitely bugs to get ironed out here.
yeah,
And this was released last night, I think, as well. Very late in the night. And other things like Mythic is ranked above Strife, above Oplano, above... I mean, let's see. Where else? Do we have any other interesting teams down here? I guess, yeah. I don't know. I don't think Mythic's better than
One Tap is on there?
Yeah, One Tap is on
Every
here. Where is
team.
One Tap?
every you can imagine is on
Yeah.
here. Like
It goes
It's-
down to 98 here, Nate.
yeah, and like again, like
Only
you
on
have,
teams we have in NA. Team
Dragon's
Brazil.
on here. It's a show match team.
Yeah, it's a show match team. Yeah, every team that's ever played recently is on
Take
here.
Flight with Xander's on here. EG Gold's down here.
That's funny.
Like Davenport's like number 25.
Davenport's like top 30, I think.
Yeah,
That's what
25.
Davenport's 25.
25,
Above
yeah.
Disconnected and Vendetta.
Yeah, which is
And the Union, which I've gotten to see the Union. I've gotten to see before. I love Koi and all. I don't know if he's taken out the Union or B4. I don't know, man.
I don't know.
He's definitely not taking out Menabier, who I rate higher than both of those teams.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, just stuff like that.
They are a team.
There's definitely things that need to get fixed, and I think there does need to be some balancing between the female scene, the women's scene as well. Like
Yep.
we have Furia's women's side here at top 30. I don't know how to quantify that because you have teams that are playing an open circuit that are ranked below when they haven't played in the open circuit in these sorts of events. So it's just things like that, I think, that'll have to be quantified moving forward.
I think so too.
And I would like to see a lot more of the women's scene now that Impact is really starting to become its own thing. Take a lot more shots at the open circuit. I feel like that's the end goal too, is to get them in the open circuit. And eventually, I mean, I feel like the goal would be to have one that qualify for the major, right?
Yeah. That'd be pretty unreal,
But the
actually.
ultimate goal is to the point where representation gets so ubiquitous that women are just on men's teams and there's no women in men's teams. It's just teams.
That I think, would be.
It's a long
the
ways
ultimate goal.
off, I think. That's the ultimate goal, though.
Yeah, I think we would need probably a women's team to qualify for a major before that even happened.
Yeah, I think we need to
be
get like
my
a
guess.
Cloud9 White level performance to get to that point. If you
Well,
want like
Cloud9 White can't do it on land, so
Cloud9 White couldn't do it on land, and I don't even know Cloud9 White exists anymore.
I'm pretty
So,
sure they don't.
I'm pretty sure they didn't get renewed on their contracts, which is
Oh,
Despite
dear.
winning everything online domestically.
Oh, dear.
despite winning everything in NA and undoubtedly being, this is a whole aside. This is not an podcast.
Yeah.
But I think the analogy still stands. I think that
Yeah.
the game changers there and Cloud9 White specifically are what we should be aiming for.
Yeah.
Um,
I agree.
and hopefully they're making progress there.
I-
I think they are.
I think we're getting, yeah, no, I definitely think we're getting there. Like, I think most of them covered some of the ESL Impact games and stuff like that. And honestly, like, it's amazing to see it like progressing. And a lot of these teams are getting better and better and better, like pretty quick. Like, I mean, there's some exciting teams to look out for. I mean, I think it's a great thing to see, and I'm more and more excited to watch Impact. I loved it as soon as they announced it. I thought that was the perfect thing to do. I think this new season, season 3, right? This is now the 3rd season.
Yeah, it's the third season.
Yeah, I'm gonna be looking forward to it because I think there's a lot of teams that are really under the radar that people don't know about yet. And there's gonna be some.
There's already
good-
been some upsets too in like
Yeah.
the Impact League, like
Yep.
Saints
Gold
free
losing to
agent.
Saints.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting scene to look at. It's an exciting scene to watch.
Yeah, but like I agree with you guys. I think it'd be cool to see if like these female teams can eventually like qualify for majors, getting themselves involved in those kind of things. Like, and then obviously the end goal will, we already talked about that, but I think it's getting there, which I think is great. So
It's a slow process, that's for sure.
it is. I think that's actually not a
And-
bad thing though. So
Yeah. It it shouldn't necessarily have to be so slow a process,
true,
but at
I
least
agree.
the process is happening again.
Yeah. It's good that there's like the right attention onto it and putting a lot of investment for like ESL Impact and other tournaments and stuff like that. I love it. I'm a huge supporter. I'll never say anything bad about it. I love it.
Yeah, I agree. It was fun getting to watch the first season, getting to cast the first season in particular. Seeing the teams grow throughout the course of the season was really fun. Exponential growth really was happening, and a lot of the teams didn't really have the opportunity to play against like the CLG Reds. And I guess it's just CLG Red now because Dig FE doesn't really exist anymore. But them having to play those teams consistently has grown the rest of their kind of like subset, and they're even doing well in say Open IM moving forward through that as well. So it's all a giant it's a giant scale, and the better they do consistently, the better it'll be for them as a whole, for the whole women's scene, and hopefully we will just have a scene. just the scene,
Yeah.
like Nate said.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought up CLG Red, because I mean, that was the team that was kind of in my opinion, like the team, like that was the female team that everybody always watched, because they always compete in IM and main. I think even at one point they were in advanced, if I'm not.
Yeah.
They got invited and they qualified.
Yeah,
And
and
they got
like,
invited, they got demoted, and then they qualified. And they were
Oh, yeah, they
first
told-
and I think only female team to qualify for advanced.
and actually, yeah, and I just pulled up the record too, and like honestly, like everything, like 6-10, 8-8. Well, they had one bad season, 5-11. Maine, they did 12-4, like 9-7 in advance. Like, so yeah, like that's pretty impressive. Like that's really impressive. So now we're starting to see more female teams coming in through quickly, which I love to see. So it makes things a lot more exciting, that's for sure. And it'll just be like the league. It's just all one
Exactly.
thing, right?
That would be a phenomenal end goal. I think that is the end goal, is that it's just the league. It's just the scene. Just like it is just North American Counter-Strike. Well, lads, any final thoughts, though, as we wrap things up?
No, I just want to wish you all, both of you, and also people that are watching, appreciate it. Thank you so much, and happy holidays to you. I'm very excited for the holiday break. So,
Yeah, happy holidays is the best. The only thing I could say. Honestly, I don't have any other thoughts about Counter Strike.
Well, yep, that is going to do it for us tonight. It is currently 10:58 p.m. on December 22nd, where I am. And, well, I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays, since this is coming out the day before Christmas. So, well, Christmas Eve, I guess, technically 2 days before Christmas Day, if you want to get that particular about it. But either way, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We'll see if we get one out before the new year. If not, we'll get one coming out early in January. But thanks for watching We Three Kings. For Boggs, Laz, and Pineapple Phillips, don't forget to leave us a subscribe if you are watching us on YouTube. Please do comment as well. If you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Podvine, please do follow the podcast. Please do give us a 5-star review as well. Really helps out with the algorithms and reaching more people. So please do give us those likes, those follows, those comments. And we hope to see you next time on We Three Kings. Thanks for watching. Happy holidays, y'all.
bye.